Good evening and welcome to the June 6th, 2022 Finance and Facility Committee meeting of the School District of Haverford Township. Let's begin with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And the first item on our agenda is construction updates from Ken Matthews of CB Development.
Hello, good evening. All right. So as far as, since last month, there's no changes from Linwood financially. All of that's been the same at this point. As far as what's been going on, they have been out cleaning up the site. They're just about done. We're down to a very, very short list of items. The Stubner project manager that's been working on the project for the last 3 years moved on to another company. So now they're transitioning, so we're trying to get answers on the few remaining items. We do have all the paperwork into the township for closeout, so we can officially get that done. We did get the final certificate of occupancy for the last two items that were left open for correcting some ADA grab bar and handrail issues, so we do have that in hand. So really our final closeout is with the township and then Delaware County Conservation, which pretty much everything's in full growth at this point, so the inspector should be back within the next week or so, and we don't foresee why we wouldn't get their final blessing on the project. Some of the other lingering items, the retaining wall fencing, finally it's in production. It's getting painted soon, so we would anticipate in the next 4 weeks or so that should be installed. So we're just waiting on the actual date at this point, but at least we know it's being manufactured. Unfortunately, we don't have an update on the sign timeline, especially with this project manager moving, but I would expect it to be done this summer unless there's some unforeseen long lead item that we were not informed about. There's some additional wall pads in the gym. Again, we're still waiting on information on that. One other item that is new this evening, we received a proposal to get some ball netting around the field, being that it falls downhill into the loading dock and is so close to the parking lot. So it would be netting like up at the high school where it's posts and 10-foot tall nets, especially since lacrosse is played there and whatnot, so it's not smashing into the cars. So we'll be sending that recommendation letter in. It's just a little bit shy of $15,000 to get that done. The library shelf replacement is due in July, any week now. That was from water damage that was done. And then we're still waiting. It's hard to believe, but card reader parts have been 6 to 7 months lead time. There were 2 additional doors that were getting card readers added to them, and I just ask them every 2 weeks what's going on, and it's so it's hard to get answers these days. So that's really it as far as Linwood's concerned. Any questions on Linwood? All right. High school phase 1. Again, there's nothing that's changed since last month financially. We're waiting for Stubner. They want to submit this month for their final payment, but we're waiting again on the final closeout paperwork with the township. It's all been submitted. So we're just waiting to hear back from Pannoni. Once that's confirmed, okay, they're essentially done with the project. They've done all their punch list items at this time. And then the only other lingering item was some additional stools were added that were released 2 months ago now, and they are set to ship not until August. So, and they're just 20 stools. So, but that's it as far as the high school's phase 1, is concerned. Okay. So what I did this month just to make it easier to see what's changed. Anything that's changed from a numbers perspective is highlighted in yellow. But essentially, before we get into the numbers, from a schedule standpoint, things are moving along very well. It was a huge help. Thank you to JR and Pete for letting us start demolition 2 weeks early. That just started basically Friday. So most of the demolition work should be done this week. They already have ductwork coming, so that's great news. The addition is weather tight. Windows are in, drywall's just about done. They'll be painting this week, so it's really starting to come together. But it is the beginning of June, so we have to be done in 2 months, so we'll keep them moving. The boilers have been installed in the basement. The chiller showed up on 2 days ago, so that's all been installed. Just waiting on one other rooftop unit. So again, things are moving along well. Some at the last board meeting, or 2 board meetings ago, excuse me, some of those larger change orders for the HVAC for the cooling tower and for the gym locker room, the Intellicom front end for the PA system, all that's been approved. That's all released now, and there's no long lead items of any concern there from the contractors. So that they've stated, everything should be easily completed this summer. And then, of course, there'll still be the regular straggler change orders coming in. There's a few things, a couple doors that we need to replace, those type of things. And then if the demolition shows anything else that needs to be done on the inside, it looks pretty clean so far, but there always could be an issue there. So as far as the numbers are concerned, everybody's contracts, their numbers are updated because of the approved change orders. You can see the pending change orders right now that are listed at 48,000. And anything pending is included in the contingency balance. So it's not 61 minus the 48. The 61,000 is inclusive of that. And then there's just been very little bit of allowance spent. We'll anticipate a lot more because there was a significant amount of concrete repair work that was included in the allowances that we'll walk with JR, kind of confirm that scope, and then that will be done this summer with all of the site work. And that is it as far as Phase 2 is concerned. Any questions on Phase 2?
Glad to hear it's coming along.
Okay, moving on to Chatham. Again, the work started over the past 6 weeks or so. They've been doing some work on second shift. They've gotten some good work done already. And then they'll move to regular shift as soon as school lets out. So that will start June 22nd, June 21st, 22nd, as we get into it. One of the big items to point out this time, I had totally missed it in the budget update, but we had a $150,000 line item in for dealing with the crawl space, all the existing piping in there. If you recall, a pipe had broken last summer, right? So there was money in there for that. So that was a separate line item, but we had included an add alternate in the HVAC bids to correct that work. So once that was accepted, I didn't pull it out of the right side of the budget. So it actually adds another $150,000 back into contingency. So contingency is in very good shape, obviously. Both projects, Chatham and Coopertown, were $300,000 a piece. So now there's $438,000. So there's a couple other HVAC repairs that we're looking at and may come back to you next month with for the kitchen area of the building. But other than that, things are moving along well. There's no major material issues, and as we discussed in the past, the chiller will be delivered sometime in late fall. Any other questions for Chatham?
Like those mistakes when it comes in our favor there.
Yes. Well, it was always a budget item. It just wasn't closed out properly, yes. Then as far as Coopertown, the same thing. They've been working second shift. They've actually gotten quite a bit of work done, more so than even Chatham. Most of the chilled water mains have been installed in the hallways, which has been great. So again, same thing. They're working second shift, and they'll flop that back to first shift come end of school. One of the other benefits of Coopertown as far as budget, PICO, we did not have to do the upgrade. So it was just approved at the last board meeting, and additional monies that we had saved in the budget for PICO itself. So there's 130,000 of credits that have come back to contingency. So with all the change orders to date, what's projected, and then with this $130,000 credit, the contingency is back up to $338,000. Which again is in good standing, especially, we don't foresee a lot of major changes here. One other item that we do want to bring up, a change order will be coming to present to you. There's a lot of existing valves throughout the building that are no longer needed. They're old, they're leaking. So we received a price to replace them and just pipe them through. This is for all the valves that feed all the classrooms. As part of the project, they all get new valves anyway. So the cost to do this over 37 valves is $15,737. And again, we'll be recommending that to be approved at the next board meeting. One of the other items that's been lingering, the fencing. There was a $40,000 allowance for fencing around the chiller. We finally got the number on a more decorative fence is being put there because it's literally at the front door of the building after discussion. So that's going to be, and with the cost of aluminum and whatnot, pricing came in, frankly, more than I would have expected, but it's looking to be about a $28,000 change order to get that done above the allowance. And so we'll be coming to present that to you all as well. Then as far as the roofing is concerned, everything's in good standing there. Deliveries are all scheduled for the material here in the next few weeks, and they'll start right at the end of school, and it's basically a 6-7 week period to redo the roof. So they're in good shape. They'll be done. It should be done by August 15th. Certainly it's weather dependent work, but there should be no issue there with that at all. Any questions on Coopertown?
Just curious, you said more decorative fencing?
Yes, so
Is it paint, is it?
usually you see around the black chain link fence. So that's obviously the least expensive. So that's what's being put at Chatham Park.
Right.
It's on the back side of the building. So this is a solid aluminum 8-foot fence.
Gotcha.
So it's it's louvered so it lets air go through, but that's the reason why you have to put in full foundations for it versus fence posts that are just a bag of concrete. So it's a lot more heavy duty, especially with the wind load.
And that sits when you're looking at Coopertown's front entrance. It's
So
like
to the auditorium's right here to the
Yeah.
left. So right next to that is
Yeah.
the chiller right out in front.
So yeah, that has a more prominent,
Yeah.
visible spot as people go by. and-
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, makes sense.
That is it as far as construction updates. So mostly everything's in good shape.
Glad to hear it.
Thanks for the good weather.
No problem. Let's keep it up for the summer.
Keep it up, right.
Thank you.
Next up, we'll have JR coming to talk to us about the results of the propane tank RFP.
Good evening. How are you doing today? The bids came today. 1 o'clock we opened them up. We've had 2 contractors bid on the project. The first contractor was Wilson Propane, came in at $224,000. And the second was Rhodes Energy at $324,000 for the 18,000 gallon propane station.
I know which one
I
you're
reached
talking
out to a district that I know that has the same system that we are proposing to go with, and their price 2 years ago was $240,000. So I felt that the price came out good. We didn't take any. They did give me prices for the propane. We also bid out for the propane for the year in gallons. We're waiting till Monday. Both companies wanted to wait a little bit longer because of the volatility of oil and gas. They wanted to wait till next Monday to come out with the prices for the propane per gallon. So that's where we're at. This is a pretty simple one for me tonight. So we're looking to go to the board next week, to propose the $224,000 to move with the propane station for Kevin.
So the propane station is separate from the propane purchase.
Yes.
And-
Yeah, because they're gonna, throughout the year, Kevin uses 100,000 gallons, about 100,000 gallons. So we're getting pricing on 100,000 gallons throughout the year. And they'll have to and we did for 3 years. We asked for pricing for 3 years, so they're gonna have to lock in 3 years of pricing for us. That's why they're waiting so the least, longest possible, because you see the prices of gas and oil. So they're going to come in Monday with prices, and then me and Martha will review the pricing on the gallons, and then compare it to this, and Monday then decide who the contractor is to go in Thursday.
If this is hopefully a peak of, at least I'm more familiar with like car fuel. If this is a peak, is it a disadvantageous time to think about a 3-year locking in the price? Can you just talk a little bit about the thinking of that?
It could be, it might be, it might not be. I cannot tell you the propane could be twice the price in 6 months or half the price in 6 months. And that's where the propane companies are. They don't even want us, they can't even speculate. They're going to get the best pricing they can because they got to go out and buy it on the market. You know, they went through this whole thing with me. I'm not a finance person. And, buy it out on the market to lock the prices in. So I can't guarantee anything on the price of the propane. Like, it could drop. It might go up.
Right. Is it customary that we purchase in 3-year increments?
We wanted to go with a 2-year, 3-year pricing to lock it in. Normally, we go with a 1 year for gas and diesel through the IU, but the IU doesn't bid out propane because I think there's only, us and two districts that do propane in the whole county, where everybody does diesel and gas.
Right.
So if those numbers come in exceedingly high, you and Martha can discuss whether it would be 3 years.
Yeah, we'll sit down, me and Martha, and figure it out, and then go back to the contractor and maybe just push it to a year. But then, who knows what next year will bring? It's
Right.
Yeah,
The volatility, but
Yeah,
I
you
just
don't
wanted
know.
the board to know, it's
yes.
not locked right now.
Yeah, it's not locked in. We could go back to them and say, we just want to lock it in for a year, and they might want it that way.
Who did the current propane station?
Wilson Propane did it 5 years ago, or 6 years ago, if I remember right, through a grant. But the station is too small to handle.
Right.
I mean, you got to remember, 6 years ago, I think George had 3, maybe 5 buses. Now we're planning on 36 buses. So we went to the bigger tank so that we can have a tanker come in to fill the propane up to give us better pricing.
And this difference in the bids, I mean, that's a pretty significant.
I know, but that's why I reached out to the other district I know that has the same one, and they were like $240. So I felt comfortable at the $224. I can't explain why the $324. But I feel comfortable with the $224. And they have the tank here, so we don't have a lead time.
that's nice too.
We went with a refurbished tank, just so you know, because a new tank would have been 1 year lead time.
Yeah.
So they all recommended to go with a refurbished tank, which is nothing wrong with a refurbished tank.
I have a follow-up question from actually something in a previous meeting.
Sure.
But since I have you here. And I don't know if the question is better for you or for Kevin, but in the February 10th meeting, we had asked, just what are the possibilities of potentially having a few solar panels at the bus depot site to help minimize or lessen some of the energy use? Did you have a chance to look into that?
Yeah, I did. The reason why the station now has a solar panel is because back 5 years ago when they put this in, for whatever reason, they didn't want to hook it up to the electric to the building. So what Wilson did is they got a propane tank with a generator on it. The solar panel only charges the battery of the generator. That's all it does. But the generator cannot handle the usage. 5 years ago, it could handle the 3 or 5 buses because he might have filled them up, just say once a week, 5 buses filled. Now you have 30 buses and they're constantly being filled every day or every other day. The generator is what can't handle delivering the propane. See, the solar panel only charges the battery lets the generator start, the generator then supplies electric to the pumps. The generator constantly fails and cannot handle the usage of how much we're using the propane station. The on and off, the on and off, the on and off, it's unreliable. And that's why the station kept going down. It was because of the generator. Nothing to do with the solar panel. The solar panel did its job just to charge the battery, a 12-volt battery. So that's why we chose to go to the electric with the new station, eliminate the generator, and now the propane station will be reliable, and the electric from the building runs the pumps, not the generator.
Okay, so I think for me, when I asked about it, I guess my understanding was a little bit different. Is that it's a big, wide area that has a lot of sun exposure, and solar panels can help minimize the electrical use that we use from the building.
Of the building.
So like, that's where I think some of my question was, is it possible to put some panels into that space for the long run to help us reduce some of the electrical use we have coming from the building?
Anything is possible. We didn't look into putting solar panels on the M&T building.
It doesn't necessarily have to be on the building, but in the area that then feeds into the building.
The area would be hard if you ever been down that way.
Yes, I have. You gave me a
I would
tour.
say we do. That's right. We do not have the space to put a solar array on the actual ground in that property. Between the Kevin's bus drivers, our staff, our parking lot is pretty jammed. Plus, we have the recycling down there. They take up a portion over there. We have also storage containers down there that are handling all the excess furniture from Linwood and all the other buildings. There's 3 storage containers down there that are handling all that equipment. We don't have the space on the ground to put a solar array. You would have to go on the roofs of the M&T building or the bus garage.
Just to follow up on that, is there, because I've seen a couple of these, they have like pole-mounted ones as well that have a clearance of, I think, 20-some feet or so from the ground. I'm just trying to throw the options here. I mean, if we're doing the M&T lot,
Well, we're only doing the back lot. We're
Well,
not
that's fine.
doing the car lot where we all park.
no, that's fine. I
Yeah.
understand that. I'm just thinking, if we're doing it, if we're paving it, why not see if we can, do it right, make it a 20 lot. I don't know. I'm throwing it out there as an idea. If we're doing it now would be the time to think about doing
Putting a
some of those
solar
things.
array, we would have to bring out an engineer and look at the property. I don't know much about the solar arrays on the post, how they get into the ground, if it would get in the way of his buses. I don't know if we have I know we don't have the space around the circumference of the bus garage to put them in, because then we got a hill and then we got the creek, and the trail. So just looking at the property, I don't know where you would put them like that. But like I said, you would have to bring someone out that designs solar arrays like that to put them in. Anything is possible.
It just seems like a big area that's open.
It is.
So it's.
It is. But if you ever came down there, you should come down,
down there. I'm down there.
at 8 o'clock. Or what time? 9 o'clock. Come down at 9 o'clock. It's not big enough. The activity down there, especially you got the fire tower down there too. I don't know how that would play into it too, because they said, they do the training, all the fire companies down there in the fire tower. We would have to bring someone out. It would be my suggestion to do something like that.
Bring somebody out if we.
You would have to bring someone out and have someone design what you would want.
There a way. I mean, and I don't know if if KCBA or anybody else does this. I'm not
other-
sure if you do, but
The other
just
thing
for
you would
like a
have to look at,
conceptual-
you would, besides doing the solar array, you might want to think then you might have to put a battery bank in. Because on a cloudy day, we still need to run the
I'm not
gas
saying
and
that we-
diesel and stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm not saying that we disconnect from the.
Okay.
From the, no. I'm not saying that we power everything with solar.
Yeah,
I'm just saying
yeah.
as an add-on.
We could look into it. I mean, if you choose to look into it, we could bring someone out and get cost estimates to see what it would cost to do some type of solar array down there, either on the roofs of the buildings or, what you were telling me, up in the, but that's what we would have to do.
I guess I would have a question about that in terms of the project that we've approved for the paving of the lot.
It would be on top of that.
Right, so that's already underway.
That starts the 22nd, 21st, 22nd. As soon as Kevin gets all the buses out, the contractors are showing up and fencing's coming down, parking lot's getting ripped up, the electric's getting all ripped up. Everything's going to start on the 21st because, once again, we have 2 months to get it all together.
Yeah,
Because we're going to be parking buses up at the Township lot, and we're going to be parking buses at Linwood on that side parking lot where the retaining wall is. And then we have to bring them all back by September.
Yeah, so to something like that, to members of the committee, I would suggest maybe taking a different approach and thinking about solar. We have the consideration for putting panels on Linwood, kind of on the table and in the works. If there is an interest in a broader solar commitment, to me, it doesn't sound like just because something is happening at the M&T lot that is necessarily the best opportunity that we have, especially since that work is already scheduled to begin. But maybe like stepping back and considering solar around the district, or, just, it doesn't have to be just the M&T lot because that's the next
Sure.
thing in the works.
That's why the question was asked though 4 months ago. So yes, I agree that there needs to be a bigger, broader perspective, but I also think we have a current project going on, and that's why the question was brought up 4 months ago. Is this a possibility? I think there was some misunderstanding of what it was, but
Yeah,
definitely
definitely.
my question was very much about how do we, there's a building there utilizing electricity. So how do we help support that electricity in a long-term plan so that we're not utilizing as much electricity? And I think, again, it was a case of a misunderstanding, but there was foresight. We were asking 4 months
Yeah,
ago.
I will apologize. I misunderstood. I thought it was more for the solar panels for the actual pump, the station. That's what I thought you meant. And that's what I looked into, not solar panels for the property.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anything else?
All right, I think
We're
we're
good?
set.
Well, thank you.
Well, we're going to switch from JR to Kevin because he wants to discuss switching out our routing software for our buses.
From parking the buses to scheduling the bus runs.
Yeah. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me. On behalf of the Transportation Department, I'm here tonight to speak about switching out our transportation software, doing a systems upgrade from Edgelog to TransFinder. From what I understand, this is something that hasn't been done since 1997. So we had Edgelog for 25 years now, which was quite an eye-opener for me.
I don't know why it's not working perfectly for us.
All right, so this is our current system that we have here with Edgelog. I mean, that's pretty much what we see every day in real time of our bus routes in that picture. A pretty antiquated system, an older software system. It's installed on local servers. It's obviously Windows-based, giving us approximate locations and not accurate locations where we have to constantly double-check and overwrite what Edgelog may provide us for a student's transportation needs, and creates a lot more time on our end, rather than have something where, it's updated, we're able to get real-time information through Google Maps, this is just, it's something that was probably great back then and a newer system, but we're really proposing to go with a more modern and upgraded system in TransFinder. So as you can see here with TransFinder, pretty much take over the East Coast, but all throughout the United States of America. Edgelog is actually based out of the West Coast, Missoula, Montana. So there's a little bit of a time difference there, which factors into our customer support a lot when we reach out to them for customer support. TransFinder is actually based out of New York. And as you can see, 8 of the 15 school districts throughout Delaware County are currently using TransFinder. This isn't an overnight process that we looked into. This is actually a 16-month a 16-month process. It really began last February of 2020. We've reached out to several routing companies. Traversa was one, VersaTrans was one, and also TransFinder, just to really pick their brains and come up with what we think is the best routing software moving forward for our district. TransFinder is located on the cloud-based Amazon servers, so it wouldn't be located on our servers, which is always, something that works well for this district. It works with our student information system. So TransFinder does work with PowerSchool. There's a lot of school districts that use PowerSchool and also use TransFinder. Not only will we get that information from PowerSchool into TransFinder, we'll also get that information from TransFinder back into PowerSchool so the parents can see it on the PowerSchool parent portal, their students' transportation information, bus stop, bus number, bus, what time they need to be at the bus stop. I believe it works good that way because not everybody uses a parent portal app. They'll go right to PowerSchool. They can see that information. Right now, with PowerSchool and Edgelog, they currently cannot see that information. Working with our student information system, I think is critical for what we're going to get with TransFinder. Exact location matters, like we discussed. This is a real-time footage. Google Maps, we're able to then go and zoom in on a location where we can see if that's a hazardous location. If we don't want to put a bus stop there where there's no sidewalks, dangerous curves, we don't want to put the students in any kind of danger, we're able to zoom in right on that picture and see exactly where that corner is without someone going out in a school bus and driving and taking up time that way. So Route Finder Plus through TransFinder works well that way. View only for staff. This would go to all principals, all building administrator assistants, and they would have access to this where they cannot change anything in our system, but they're able to view the students' transportation needs, as well as if Bus 26 serves Coopertown Elementary School, they are able to pull that whole bus up and look at all of those students' needs. Like I said, they can't change anything, but it's good to have at the school level. This piece I think is huge for Viewfinder. Teachers out at dismissal, right? They're putting the students onto the bus. We want to make sure that the kids are getting on the correct school bus. A teacher could stand out there with an iPad or even with a phone and have access to that information. All right, I'm making sure Johnny's getting on the correct school bus. We don't have any mix-ups, where a kid's getting on the wrong bus, and then we're scrambling to find out where that kid is. So Viewfinder works well that way. Family communication through StopFinder. This is actually what we will have if we go this route, of course, immediately, where this will be the parents' portal app on their cell phone if they choose to download it. It'll give the students information, stop time, bus, student's name, and it's just a good tool for any parent who uses their cell phone. If you're always on your cell phone, can't get to the PowerSchool parent portal, all right, I have my students' busing information right here. Like I said, app for family access. We are able to send out information to parents through the app. Hey, the bus is running late. We can notify those parents, keep an open line of communication. Parents can even send us a message or alert back where we receive it. Just good to keep everyone involved and communicating. Alerts to families. The school can even do this if we get held up at the middle school with bus number 26. There's an incident on bus 26. We're held up at the middle school. It's now going to affect all those kids on bus 26. We can send an alert out to every student's parent on bus 26 and make sure that they're notified that the bus is going to be running a little bit late. Then if that bus goes and picks up Chatham Park kids after the middle school, we can also alert those parents. Hopefully by that time we'll send another bus and take care of the Chatham kids so they're not late. But another critical piece to make sure that we're communicating with the parents of anything, school bus related. More alerting to families. Like I said, we can do it at the school level. Just a great tool. Shoot out any kind of message, especially this time of year with Aqua, working in almost every street throughout the township. We're able to let them know, hey, these stops on Darby Road need to go to this location, and just able to communicate and make sure that we don't miss any children. GPS hardware. Currently, we have Samsara. TransFinder does work with Samsara, which is great. It also works with Zonar GPS, which is what we used to have. We upgraded to Samsara, so we're glad that that's a good communication that TransFinder communicates with. Why are we looking to make this change? First one's route optimization, right? We want actual and real-time analysis, all right, making sure that our stops are on time. We're going to condense routes, right? TransFinder will do all that with us when we turn over what we have. Reduces the student's ride time, right? No one wants to be on the bus for 45 minutes. If we can cut that down to a half hour, great. Customer support, like I spoke of earlier, they're in the Eastern time zone. We'll have a dedicated project manager, and 95% of our customer support is going to be answered. So that's huge for us. Like I said, we're dealing with things now in our current routing software where we're able to move forward, but we're still a couple weeks behind in some of our support, just because we're not getting the answers we need. And of course, it's user-friendly. Day-to-day tasks require less stops, saving time every day and every week. And then there's a significant price difference, which you will see in a couple slides, for the annual Edgelog fee versus the annual TransFinder fee. Our target timeline is critical. You'll see in the next slide that we're going to have to carry 2 routing softwares for next school year, for the 2022-23 school year. So what that looks like in the fall, we'll be using our existing Edgelog system for one last full school year launch. In the fall 2022, once we have the routes built, usually around like the end of September, we'll turn them over to TransFinder. TransFinder will then begin to build our routes for the 23-24 school year, only the morning routes now, through TransFinder. And that'll happen all in the fall. They'll then turn those routes back over to us. We'll take a look. We'll be trained in the meantime through TransFinder, and then we'll be able to build the afternoon routes. And then that summer, we'll be able to move back and build the kindergarten routes once we get those kindergarten students in our database. Spring of 2023, continue training. We'll build some of the routes for the summer as well as the fall in 23 in the new TransFinder platform. And then we'll have a careful kind of soft rollout of the 23 ESY program, which would be next summer. Summer 2023, we'll sunset the Edgelog system and the use of TransFinder going forward. Like I said, the soft open with the ESY routes, full launch for fall of 2023, opening using TransFinder. All right, the financial impact. So you see we'll be carrying 2 routing software programs for 22-23. The annual Edgelog fee right now is $71,753.65, but plus the 8.3% yearly increase CPI. TransFinder's fee year one, $46,275, includes the software licenses, professional training services, and the route implementation. So we're looking at $118,028.65 for the 22-23 school year, carrying 2 softwares. Now, if you look at the year 2 costs, 23-24 Our TransFinder fee is $11,350, includes our software, tech support, maintenance and hosting services. Also includes StopFinder to StopFinder, Geo Alerts, Samsara. If we stuck with just the StopFinder, we're fine. If we go with the StopFinder, Geo Alerts, and Samsara, that's where that $22,000 annually would then kick in. What that Geo Alerts is allowing parents to do now on the app is to follow that bus, right? They're able to see exactly where that bus goes, weather situations. Hey, I can keep the kid in the house a couple more minutes before he goes out in the rain. So we're looking at $33,350 for the 23-24 school year. And then if you look, your savings after the 22 and 23 school year, pretty significant, really cuts that number in half.
So will it continue into like 2024 will be roughly about 33,000?
That is correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
This seems like a no-brainer. It's half the cost.
Absolutely.
It's better software for half the cost, so.
Exactly right. So, the savings is huge, the route implementation, the support, everything that we're going to be getting from them. We've done our homework on, we've thoroughly reviewed what they offered. The TransFinder sales reps have been on me for years just because they know me. And then getting away from the sales rep and really digging into things with them, having them do a presentation for us 16 months ago when this thing started, it was a real eye-opener to see, how good this software can be and what it can do for our district. Any questions?
I think it all seems pretty compelling and obviously an improvement. So thank you for the thorough report. I just had a couple of questions just because I was kind of curious about stuff. When you said that this TransFinder is used by 8 of 15 school districts, is that a benefit for us? Because I know how much our bus network connects to neighboring districts.
Huge for us. Transportation sharing throughout, Delaware County and really into some of the other counties with some McKinney-Vino students. It's huge. It'll only help us. Radnor does, all our surrounding districts really do it. Radnor, Marple, Newtown. So it's a really good system that they're using.
The question I have is actually probably more for Dr. Reusche. So the very targeted alerts that can go out to parents, say bus 26 has a problem.
Yep.
Will that then get rid of the general email that would go out to everybody? Some buses are having, do you know what I mean? Like that confuses some parents. Like this would be a far more targeted.
Yeah.
Okay.
We can even break it down by run. Bus 26, run 1878. Let's say it's just Haverford Middle School is 1878. We can break it down by run so only those parents on 1878 see what that message is.
Yeah, that seems like a real asset, like a significant asset for everybody.
Yeah, that communication piece alone is so critical. Yeah.
And with Power School, I was just curious, the communication, is Power School how we log attendance too? So is there any reason why, if your kid's not going to be in school, that the bus needs to know that too?
The parents can let us know that. Normally, we're pretty blindsided by that, but they can let us know that through the app, really.
Okay.
Yeah. But a lot of times, the parents in the district usually call the transportation office. They'll tell us, especially like the curb students. They're great. Since a lot of the stops have multiple kids there, it's not really that much of an issue. It's stopping there either way, but the curb to curbs, it's phenomenal for that.
Okay.
Yep.
Any other comments or discussion?
Looks great.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, looks like it was a long time coming and going to be great.
It's just too bad we can't do it faster.
But I think that time speaks to the magnitude of effort that is behind the scenes in terms of just making transportation work and getting all the kids where they are supposed to be when they are supposed to be there.
And having an overlap, I think, is helpful, that we're not just turning one off, turning one on, having that staggered next year, even though there's carrying costs for both. That will help ease that transition.
All right.
The next item on the agenda is to provide you with information on the results of our feasibility study, RFP. We did provide you with a chart of the 8 bidders, as far as the total cost. I know that there might be some questions on all of this, so Dr. Reusche wanted to highlight some things from our RFP process itself.
So just as a reminder, because there's a whole lot of things that are that are going on, this RFP was issued so that we could accomplish 2 things. Number one, that we would be able to, in one comprehensive location, have a good assessment of all of our facilities and help us look at our next round of long-range planning for facilities. We've done a lot of work over the last couple of years. Certainly building Linwood was one of the significant projects that was undertaken. That entire scope of work that was examined when we looked at facilities back then, we are nearing the completion of that with the work at Coopertown and Chatham that is now underway. The additions of the 2 wings over at the high school, that was all part of that feasibility discussion a number of years ago. So it's a good time for us to have that assessment conducted of the physical conditions of the schools. And in addition to the schools, the maintenance and transportation facility, the maintenance shop that's down on Haverford Road that sometimes people forget we actually have there, the ground shop that is there. So everything will be included, Oakmont as well, and an analysis of the facilities, the physical condition, and what we will receive in the at the end of that will be any recommendations for improvement, energy efficiencies, structural soundness, replacement or repairs, and we can build a long-term capital improvement plan that will be based upon those priorities. Also part of this, we have provided anyone who responded to the RFP with assessments that have been done to date, but we also provided them with a demographic study and the addendum that was completed for the demographic study. So as a secondary part of the feasibility study is to calculate building capacity and look at the capacity for the expected population. And then there's also a component where they will be reviewing the current and the planned educational programs. So there's an opportunity to say that, there have been a number of times where people have asked about, well, what would we do, with kindergarten? That's a question that we can put out and say, where could that space possibly be? Where would we look at if we reach maximum capacity? What are the options that we have in some of our buildings for either adding on to the buildings or, how do we meet all of the capacity needs? That would be part as well. We would receive schematic plans that would be inclusive of estimated costs and the pros and cons to any options that would be presented. So any option that is presented, the schematics for it, the estimated cost, and the pros and cons. As Martha mentioned, we have 8 bidders who have responded to that. We're in the process of taking a look at the information that they sent in to us. You can see them there, which is the lowest bidder, and up to the highest. Our lowest being a total of $12,000, which includes a 3-year update to the project afterwards, and the highest being $175,000. So right now, what we're doing is focusing upon the 4 that are there within what we think would be somewhat a reasonable number. We're looking at the references. We're looking at sample feasibility studies that they have completed, and of course the cost. And that, unless there's some compelling reason for us not to select the lowest bidder, that's who we would go with.
So I have a question. So obviously there's an outlier with these, but there's a pretty big disparity between the low bidder and even the 4th or 5th highest bidder. You expect there to be some disparity, obviously, but we're talking double or triple. Was there, and maybe you haven't looked over it in detail yet, was there a difference in scope, difference in methodology? What, I mean, do we know what it, I mean, that, because obviously the low bidder is the one who you look at first, but I want to know what we're getting for it as well. So have you looked over it? I mean, do we have a way to account for differences or not?
There's not a whole lot that has jumped out in terms of differences. But we'll look at, again, we're going through samples that they submitted now to see what's that feasibility, what was the end result like for some. So we're trying to look at like projects, if possible. So a like project where they're doing a study of the whole district and then looking at the enrollments also. Some of the respondents were doing what I would like unique, I don't want to call them boutique, but they were like a natatorium.
Sure.
Like that's, we're not going to look at that. That's the sample that they gave to us. So we're focusing more on samples where they did a comprehensive district piece. But to answer your question, Dave, I don't have anything.
It just seems, I'm just.
Yeah, sure. When you look at Heckendorn, like.
Well, just, I mean, all of them, quite frankly, are a little bit. So I mean, I guess, and I'm assuming that they all were asked for references, correct? So we can call
Yes.
the actual districts
Yeah.
and, okay.
They have letters of, reference in there as well, and we
And
can.
the resumes weren't.
Yeah,
okay.
Martha has reached out to a couple of the districts.
Will there be an interview process where you bring them in and kind of ask them to give a little dog and pony show?
We can,
Okay.
yeah. I mean, we would definitely, not all 8.
No,
but-
of course not. I mean, I'm thinking like top 4 or 5, just to figure out kind of where that, even between 12,000 and 21,000, just to figure out where that.
What
that's-
accounts for that
Yeah,
difference.
what accounts for that fairly significant difference. I'm just kind of, I don't want to just immediately pick the low bidder if they're proposing something, less than, I guess, what what we're looking for. And I'm assuming that for this service, we don't need to pick the low bidder necessarily. We just,
You are correct, but if we do not pick the low bidder, we need to have a
your
rubric
reason. Okay.
that identifies specifically what it is that we would be looking at.
Okay.
And then we need to score each one of them based upon that rubric.
Sure. No, that's pretty typical. I just was wondering, that's a.
Well, I'm just thinking about how many buildings we have and the time alone to spend time and do analysis. That low bid just seems like not even that much to be able to pay a small staff to do all of that time and effort that is going to be required. One just logistical question I have. This is what we hope that we'll have by November at the facilities report?
We were hoping.
The original, that may or may not happen, but that's our
Yes.
hope. So then what would the year 3 update entail? Like what is that, like what would that be? Coming back and redoing it?
It's them coming back and refreshing, basing off what we have done off of their lists, or what we haven't done off their lists, or if something in that 3-year period has come up, just refreshing for whatever that event might have been.
Okay, so it's like almost just updating the report itself
Right.
to include anything that has changed in those 3 years.
Could
Okay.
imagine in like enrollment updates.
Yeah.
Right.
could
But
be
not
like-
necessarily evaluation of the building itself. It's more just taking our data and like the information we give them and updating the report that way.
If we would want them to come back out to look at the buildings, they would come back out.
Okay, just again, looking at the cost, because the cost of the
Yeah.
3-year is so minimal, I can't imagine they're gonna be coming out and doing another unless you're looking at the higher bidders. Okay,
I'm looking at this scope of services we're asking
Yeah.
for on page 2, and it just seems incongruous that, looking at these numbers.
Yeah.
I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I've been in consulting for 40 years, and it costs you $10,000 to have a report written,
yeah.
without anybody on the ground doing anything.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of curious what the spread is here. I also just want to note McKissick, what was the first, was Chestnut-Wald or,
They did
McKissick?
Chestnut Wall.
He was the architect for Chestnut-Wald. The other thing is looking at the scope of services, in a couple of places, item 1 and item 5, it talks about energy efficiency, so that may be an opportunity
Yeah.
to ask them to also look into the possibility of solar throughout the district.
Yep.
And what's feasible. But I'd be curious what these folks are actually proposing to do, for those low dollar amounts.
I mean, $12,000 is 120 hours usually, isn't it? I mean, Larry, give or take. I mean, just based on, because I'm in consulting as well. It just, and Martha, and maybe it doesn't need to be a full interview process. I know that consultants hate doing that because it's a lot more work, but even maybe a phone call kind of interview just to say, hey, what precisely are you going to give us? I mean, one thing that I hate to do is pick one of the lower bidders, and then
Regret it.
then they come back also in like a few months with change orders saying, oh, we didn't account for this because it wasn't in our scope. So I want to really very clearly state out precisely what they're going to get. I mean, and I don't know if these, we haven't seen them obviously. The board has nor to expect us to be looking at them, but I do want to see what they spelled out they're going to do. I think that would be very intriguing to see what we're getting for our money. It's just, those are.
And I would
Weird
suggest,
numbers.
I mean, I did have an opportunity to see the proposals. I think Dr. Reusche reached out because in my professional career, I do facility financing and sometimes have to look at scopes of projects. So flipped through these this weekend, the low 4 bidders, and didn't necessarily find things in the low bid that was immediately disqualifying. I would invite that the board,
Can I borrow 'em?
board members can look through these. And then I understand there are sample of reports that might be useful to
Great.
get a sense of like, okay, is this what a $12,000 or a $20,000 contract would get you? I think, one of the things that stood out for me were some of the, as Dr. Reusche was saying, like the work that was done, and does it seem like what we're asking for? There were several that pointed to like athletic field scoping and sizing, and I'm like, okay, that's not it. But then other districts, that had multiple buildings. There was one that was a proposal for a district with diminishing enrollment, and what could they do? I'm like, okay, that's not us, right? Like there's a couple that they just, it just didn't seem like a good match. But I think that it might be helpful if we can kind of set up a room or a way to share some of these for people to flip through and get a sense of the firms and what's proposed. And I don't know whether this is a thing or not, but I know that, like there is kind of like you do a initial low bid project to get a relationship, and that from this might come follow on work. I don't know if that's part of a strategy of putting
Well, also,
these
I mean,
initial scans together, that they might be like, oh, I just want to get a foot in the door. And then when, there's a proposal to make modifications to a building or make some, that they could get the architectural studies for that.
Yeah, and look, I didn't want to sound like I was disparaging anybody. I mean, there could be very good reason. Maybe somebody has a black box that they kind of have developed over the years, and they plug numbers and churn out good results. I don't know. But yeah, if there's a way to, I mean, I don't know if those are the only hard copies you have. If there's a way to like put those online somewhere, PDFs to.
Maybe make a room available
Make a room or
for people
something
to come
available.
flip through.
I want to look through them just to
Yeah.
make sure.
And one thing, because I also, my initial reaction was like, oh, this does not seem like much money for what I was picturing being done.
Yeah.
One of the things that Ms. Cube pointed out was that we did have an awful lot of information to hand to these bidders, right? That we've had the prior studies, we have the, the current plans for newly built and modified buildings. We have a very recent demographic study. So in other situations, the firm might be asked to do more of that groundwork themselves than what we can get them off with a good start because of the information we have at hand.
Okay.
But yeah, I would welcome a chance, for people to flip through and see what they see, and also to see the final reports. I think would be the ones that they submitted as samples would be telling.
That'd be good, yeah. And okay, no, that's and then when, just administratively, when do we have we in order to get feasibility facility study in a good time frame? Is there like a date when you want to make a decision on this? Is there a date when you kind of have to pull the trigger?
We wanted to make a decision, but, before the end of this month, like by the 16th.
Okay, that's fine.
If it goes to July, it goes
Not
to
the end of the
July.
world.
It's not the end of the world, but we definitely won't have the information in November if we go to July. So just so people know that.
I think June makes a lot of sense. I just wanted to know how much time we had to, how much
Right.
time I
The-
block out this weekend.
Yeah, and like, we have
Timeframes,
two, sorry.
the timeframes for 3 of the 4 proposals that I looked at were 6 months. One said 5 months.
Okay.
Do we have any peer districts that have had comparable projects done in the last few years that we might be able to?
There are some nearby districts listed in the sample projects that they've referenced.
Did they include the prices?
No,
Mm.
no prices, and not all of them even give dates. Some of them highlight or put an asterisk if it was like within the last 5 years or something like that, but I'm recall, like Norristown was one that was in here. The low bidder has them here in alphabetical order. The low bidder is one that has more of a central Pennsylvania footprint, and so there's districts I recognize more from there, but Norristown was one that they had done.
Ben Salem.
And Ben Salem, yeah. Methacton is not too far away. But yeah, it would be interesting to.
And like you said, it could just be a good foot in the door. That's pretty common.
Now, and there are 2 copies of the doc, so it certainly, again, because of your work, Dave, I'm not saying Dr. McKay can't as well, but because of your work, if you wanted to take these 4 tonight, Bridget has already taken a look at them.
Okay.
We still have copies of these here that if someone said they wanted to come in and spend a little bit of time taking a look at them, we can, and we can get the other 4 if you wanted to look at those as well.
Love bedtime reading. So yeah.
Yeah,
no, thank
yeah.
you.
If you just, come and drop them off and pick up the next set, we're here.
All right, thank you.
Is a next step then, since it does seem like there is an interest in digging a little deeper and not just accepting the low bid, to come up with that rubric of evaluation? Or is that a
Yes.
necessary next step?
Yes, that would be efficient in terms of timing. If we think there's a possibility that we would not be going with the low bidder, that we know. So maybe even if you think, Dave, before you look at this, what is it that you're looking for?
Sure.
I'm not asking you now. Like, what is it like? Can you put down what you're looking for? That helps, because the rubric does need to be pretty concrete.
Oh,
You know,
yeah,
your experience with it. It can't be like, I liked this, or I
like a name.
yeah, so
I
what
gotcha.
we had in there, so if you could list that, if we could start to put that together, we will continue with with the reference checks. Bridget, certainly, you're in regular contact with other board presidents and so, at a lot of meetings. I don't know if you have any coming up in the next 2 weeks to just ask any of them that might be mentioned in some of these documents. KCBA is one, so we don't, other than looking at their information, we don't necessarily need to make any
We know
calls
them.
about them.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, I think the idea of rubric is helpful. I know we get it in different ways, like looking even at textbooks, and we did it for the food services, so that kind of a tool to help flip through and figure out what makes each of these proposals distinct.
And they can be simple. I've seen simple and I've seen complex, so I'll give some thought.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think it probably has a lot to do with their prior experience on projects similar to ours.
Exactly.
And, the extent to which it's a southeastern Pennsylvania may be meaningful compared to assessments done.
Are the hours broken down by, but well, I'll look at it.
They do have, detail on compensation and time frame.
Okay, I'll look at that too. I just was curious. Okay. I get my thoughts in order.
If you dig into it, great.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is for the insurance renewals. I did add to the agenda a chart that I had done up for, the insurance renewals.
Can we get the correct slide up on that screen?
I don't know if I sent it to them.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
No.
It is out on our agenda.
Yep.
So if you go out onto board docs, it is there.
These guys are so fast with their
I
tech
know.
skills. They
No-
can do
no
it.
pressure, guys.
Yep.
You guys are good. Wow.
Yeah. And it's the last one there, yep.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Can we zoom it up a little bit? There they go.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. What I did was I broke this down so that you have the different types of coverage as well as who the insurers are. And I provided this year's, the 21-22 actuals, what is in our budget for the final budget, and what the actual renewal numbers came in as. So in the first group, it's school board liability coverage. This year, the actual is $108,542. Our budget had $112,600. The actual renewal came in at $122,257. And when I spoke to Pat Larkin at AJG, he said that's just the way the rates are coming in this year on the school board liabilities.
Probably a sign of the times.
Yeah.
What? Yeah.
It's a pretty significant jump, so yeah.
Yeah. I'm curious. What is that? Just the school board liability? That's a lot for just school board. I guess it covers.
It's our umbrella liability as well as the excess liability,
Okay.
all in that group.
Just surprising. Yep.
The next group I called property liability. It includes our property coverage, crime coverage, general liability, equipment, flood, volunteer, cyber insurance, and crisis protection. The first one, the property area, went up because we added things like Linwood and the high school phase one. So our cost of our properties has gone up. In the case of crime, which is a very small policy, but we changed the coverage from $500,000 to $1 million in an area called social engineering. And social engineering is, to give you an example, it's like if I suddenly got an email from Dr. Reusche that said, I'm in a meeting, can you please transfer $80,000 to cover the blah, 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 blah. And
I didn't send that email.
and Dr. Reusche didn't send it. That's that fraudulent social engineering email.
Okay.
That's what that, and that's becoming a very common happening across the board. So,
And that's separate from cyber insurance?
yes, it is separate from cyber
Okay.
insurance. In the cyber insurance, obviously our cyber insurance went up. We managed to hang on to, and this sounds ridiculous, but we managed to hang on to the same level of coverage. They didn't reduce our coverage. Our coverage costs came in close to what we were using for our budget. And the crisis protection, it also went up. Crisis protection is basically our terrorist package. And you can understand why that would be going up. So for 21-22, our actual costs were $301,000. The budget has $324,000. The final number is almost $345,000. In the case of our auto, this year it's at $76,443. Our budgeted at $80,000, and the final number actually came in under what we're currently paying this year at $74,855.
It's all those accident-free bus drivers.
Thank you.
Our public official bonds, that's actually the bonds for your board secretary and your board treasurer. That basically stayed the same. The student accident policy, again, basically stayed the same. And our workers' compensation, I have no idea what magic AJG did, but we went from this year of $348,000 to a final number of $325,000. That's a remarkable number. So this year's actual cost in total was $851,000. Our budget had 898,000. We actually came in a little bit under the budget at 881,000.
Nice to come around that way, because it was starting off looking like a little precarious, right?
Well done on your guesses for the budget. Well done.
Well, I can't take credit for that. I actually did contact Gallagher and ask them for, can you give me an estimate, that I can put in the budget? And they obviously estimate very well, but thank goodness to the workers' compensation.
And to our drivers. Thank you.
Yes.
So this will be brought forward, the renewal will be brought forward on the meeting for the 16th for the board to authorize us renewing our insurances.
Okay.
And assuming there's no questions on our insurance renewals, that's the end of my section of the agenda.
Okay. Any other comments or anything from the board on agenda items?
Nope, just thank you to all of you who are spending time looking at all of these long stacks of paper, so I really appreciate it.
Okay. The next item on the agenda is a time for public comment, if anyone in the audience would like to speak. All right, I'm seeing somebody come to the podium. State your name and confirm your residency in the township, and we're going to look for your remarks to be about 3 minutes.
Hi. Sorry. Hi, I'm Kevin Cunningham. I live in Haverford. I'm here representing the robotics club at the high school. So for some background, every year the robotics club builds a 3 foot by 3 foot by 5 foot robot that goes and plays some random game. This year we were shooting oversized tennis balls into a 10-foot hoop in the middle of a big field with 5 other teams at our big competitions. It's a lot of fun. The reason I'm here talking to you guys today is after 20 years of the club's operation, we had a change of leadership last year. And with that, we've had some struggles with how we are able to use our workspace that we think can be really fixed easily and really help us out. So down in the basement of the high school, there's a room that has all our workshop, a bunch of machinery and equipment in there. We don't have a key to it anymore. So we have to find a janitor to unlock it for us. And that creates some issues where what will end up happening is either the janitor will unlock it ahead of time, and then a student can just come in to use the workshop and be there unsupervised, or we have to spend 15 minutes tracking down a janitor, and then they have to stop doing whatever they're doing. Important note, we meet at 6:30 at night. So it's not like we're going in right after school ends and there are people around. That is due to the fact that a lot of our volunteers are professionals. So I help out, I'm an engineer. We've got another engineer, a retired mom of a former student, and an engineering student in college. We can't really commit the time at 2:30 in the afternoon to come in and start doing things then. It's similar to you guys. You don't have your school board meetings at 2:30 in the afternoon either. Another issue is the elevator key. So we build our robot in the basement. We are shooting in a big hoop. So when we're practicing shooting in a big hoop, it's 10 feet tall. The basement just doesn't have ceilings that high. So we have to get our robot from the basement where we build it into the cafeteria, which has tall ceilings that we can use. So again, to use the elevators, we have to go track down a janitor, get in their way, bother them, and then be able to go and practice. And it's just a big waste of everybody's time. The next thing is swipe cards. My understanding is we don't have a swipe card for ourselves. Usually not a big deal when we're meeting during our normal times, which is just during the week at nights, because there are people there to let us in. Where this comes into issues is we'll have our competitions on the weekends, and they're big, long, all-day events. And nobody's really there to open up the building on Sunday at 6 o'clock at night. And we've got a bus full of stuff that we just need to move into our workshop from outside, and it just creates hassles and problems. So if we could just swipe ourselves in, use the elevator, go down, drop everything off, get out of there, that would be a lot better for us. The next big thing is how we are able to meet. So the system, am I done? The system.
Generally give 3 minutes, just to make sure everybody has enough time. Is there other speakers tonight? Okay, we will, allow you to continue, but please try to wrap it up.
Yep. So we meet for about 400 to 500 hours over the course of the year. The system in place is that there are 2 adults who are officially hired through the school, and then we have a bunch of other people who are background checked. I myself am background check cleared to work with people, but I'm not, in any official capacity. So I'm here talking as opposed to the person who's in charge, because we have a meeting tonight and she has to be at the meeting for us to be able to meet functionally. So that really doesn't work for us because we want to meet for 400 or 500 hours, but we need her or the other position, which this past year was unfilled, but even if we filled it, right, we have 2 people who need to be there for 400 or 500 hours over the course of the year. And that's just a big time commitment and difficulty. And with the background checked adults, we would like to try to figure out a way to adjust those rules to better fit what we have there, which is, we have plenty of adults, and we would just like to see if we could tweak the rules a little bit to see what we could do and make something that worked better for us.
Okay.
And
Thank you
that's
for
all.
your comments, and this is
yeah.
a matter that I would direct to Dr. Reusche and the high school administrators to see if they can work with you.
And it seems like the biggest things here are simply, one of these ones is getting access to the building and use of the elevators, more or less. And the other one is just, I don't know if it's, call it a staffing issue or not, just, you could use somebody, some additional, is that what you're?
So I don't know what's easier on your end. So I know we have 4 people who can be there on a lot of nights. And so if you wanted to have us in your system and you wanted to pay us and call us official, train us, whatever you wanted, that would work. The other idea that I have in mind is that, we have adults who are background checked, and if we could set it up that if we had 2 adults who were background checked in the system there, then if we could be able to meet, if that was met, then we could really adjust who's there on what nights and make sure to give everybody time off and not burn them out.
Okay.
And one of the big issues is the 400 or 500 hours we like to meet as much as we can from the start of the year till about mid-March, which is when they tell us what robot we're going to be building, to when our competitions start. So we're trying to meet every night, and it can just be a lot if you don't have the ability to spread out who's there on what night.
Sure. Okay, so.
Mr. Cunningham, thank you for clearly you've been doing the work as a volunteer. Thank you for the volunteer work that you have been doing with the students this year. It's always exciting for us to see the work that the robotics club, what robot they create, and even more so to see the excitement in the students' faces when they're showcasing their work in some way.
Yeah.
I will follow up with Mr. Donaghy and we'll talk. It is all about the kids and giving kids opportunities to engage in activities that they enjoy. We have the same, which I'm sure as an adult you understand, we have liability insurance, like just things that we need to be mindful of. So what might sound like a very reasonable solution, like give us a key, give us a swipe card, we've got insurance issues in terms of who is present. But I think if we, all sit down together and maybe, put our heads together and see how we can reasonably address the needs of the kids with some of the restrictions that we have.
Yeah. On our end, we don't know what the problems are, which is it's always frustrating to just be like, man, this solution exists, it's so easy. And I can understand that there are liability issues, but I don't know what they are, and it's just very frustrating, right? And on your end, you don't even realize that this is a problem because we don't know how to reach out and effectively communicate it.
The robotics team has been here since I've been here, and actually my son participated many years ago, and I'm familiar with the workload and the hours and the process. So, somehow we were able to make it work previously, and it sounds like maybe perhaps with turnover,
Yep.
we've lost some of the continuity, and I think Dr. Reusche's suggestion's a good one, so.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
By the way, I just,
Thanks
Yeah.
for coming tonight.
And thank you for your dedication to the program. Obviously, a big commitment, and it, you know, the robotics club is a point of pride for the high school, and thank you for all of that.
just out of curiosity, by the way, we had a, and I don't know how easy it is, but we had a drone presentation a while ago where they came in and flew around drones. I don't know how big the robots are.
We can drive it around and shoot it wherever.
Let's say, okay.
We can set that up. We've done that in the past where we would bring it in and show
Okay.
it off.
I was curious.
If you guys would like to see it, I mean, I can
Yeah, they've been
send an
to
email, reach
board
out
meetings in
and
the
try and
past.
figure that out. I'm
Okay.
sure the kids would love it.
That's what I was thinking. I was thinking
Yeah.
the kids would enjoy showing it off, so that would
Yeah,
be
it's great.
a fun thing. Okay.
I always enjoyed it when I was back on the team back in the day. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And I had asked once, but any other comments? Seeing none, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.